Hi everyone, so in this video I'm going to be doing a world design, and it basically just turned into me doing an illustration, but I did a lot of kind of like world building sketches to get to the final stage. And I guess my goals for this was to kind of develop a world, was to kind of create an environment, kind of like an immersive environment, and put a lot of focus on planning what each kind of foliage will look like, what the trees will look like, rocks, mushrooms, people, all that kind of stuff. So what I started with was I did a list of possible themes or elements and basically anything that came to my mind that I could include. It wasn't a very long list, but I just kind of wrote down certain things that kind of sparked an idea. And something that I did was I went to artprompts.org, which is a site that you can kind of generate random stuff, and I did random environment and something else, and I kind of wrote down little ideas based off of some of the random prompts that I got. It's not sponsored, but if you want to visit this site, I'll link it in the description. And also, if you want to grab this as a print, I'll link it in the description on my shop, so you can grab a print of this if you feel like it. I ship it internationally, so no matter where you live, you can get one. So it took me a really long time to kind of decide what I wanted to do for the world, and eventually I came across the idea of doing kind of like the rib cage of an animal embedded in the ground as kind of the focal point. Not really, there's not really a clear focal point. It's supposed to kind of, you're supposed to kind of look around the whole environment. Like everything is sort of the same importance, but I'd say the two most important things are the character that I end up including and the rib cage or the bones coming out of the ground. And I kind of got this idea from, I think in the back of my mind I was thinking of The Lion King with the I don't know if they call it an elephant graveyard in the movie. It's been a while since I watched it, but kind of like an elephant graveyard where like elephants died, but then you can kind of walk amongst the bones. And there's like really huge bones that might have come from like more mythical creatures. So it's kind of based on that sort of idea. And that kind of became less of a focus, and I ended up spending more time on just drawing the environment. And I figured out the kind of tree style I wanted to do and what kinds of mushrooms I wanted to draw, as well as the grass and just the way that I wanted the character to look. And the character I actually picked is based off of a bunch of sketches I did of this like ladybug girl, and I knew I wanted to draw her in some sort of scenario and maybe a whole bunch of people that have like bug wings as backs and kind of have like clothing that looks like the bug's body. I don't know how original of an idea that is, but I wanted to draw something like that, and I made her sort of fly on this sort of a broomstick, but not really. It's kind of has two ends and they both light up. They might be powered by something, or it might be a tool to do something, maybe to excavate the bones, who knows. And I don't really know if I can call this a random world design, but it kind of is, because I got some random prompts from online and I kind of went with what I felt like doing at the time, and it was kind of like a spontaneous sort of world design. When it comes to world building, you can really spend as little as 5 minutes and as much as 10, 20 hours building the world and what you want each element to look like. So you can draw out what rocks will look like, what plants will look like, what houses will look like, streets, cars, lamps, people, all kinds of stuff. You can go into as much depth as you want and try to kind of make the way you draw each thing kind of seamlessly blend into the other, so everything actually looks like it's part of the same world. And usually for me, everything, I always put my style into everything every artist does. It's hard not to, but the specific way you choose to draw something that time is kind of the part that relates to the world building. So I looked up cool tree on Google Images just to kind of break myself out of the way I always draw trees. And I found these ones with huge roots. So the tree trunk kind of comes down and it goes up and makes these really tall roots, almost like the roots are branches themselves. So I was trying to figure out different ways to draw trees. And I realized I never really draw willow kind of trees or trees with hanging branches and kind of like loose vine-like leaves that kind of blow in the breeze. I never really draw trees like that. I always just kind of default to the way I always draw trees. So I kind of added this type of tree to my sort of like visual library of trees I can kind of pull out and draw whenever I need to draw different kinds of trees. So I decided to draw that because I never really do. So a lot of the foliage is very rounded and not very angular, because sometimes I like to do more angular foliage. I like to make the texture of the tree trunks go kind of in diagonal lines, but this time I made it kind of follow the length of the tree up to the sky and to the ground. And I had a lot of fun with this illustration. I spent quite a long time on it. I tried to be patient and take my time and make it look the way I wanted it to look and not overwork certain areas, because I find when an area looks good and I'm happy with it, I feel the need to keep working on it because it looks good and I want to make it look better. But sometimes you just have to leave it and not work on it anymore because you will ruin it. And I do this all the time. I always ruin areas that don't need to be touched. I kind of did that near the end a little bit, and I noticed I was doing it and I stopped and decided it was done. So I'm using watercolor for this, obviously. I use the Arches or Arch watercolor paper, the hot press stuff. I like it a lot because it works with watercolor and with pencil, because I use pencil on top of watercolor. And I use the Shinhan watercolors, PWC. I think that means professional watercolors. They're the extra fine watercolors. I like them because they're a decent price for how much paint you get, and they work up really quickly with water, which is something that's important to me. If it takes me ages to get paint off the watercolor, then I will not use it. I'll just never touch that color. So I found I've had more luck with these, and a viewer actually recommended me them a while ago. I've talked about this before, but in case you didn't know, those are the ones I used, and someone actually recommended me to use them, and I'm really glad that my art store actually had them. The thing about them is that I can never find the individual ones on Amazon to link in the description, so I always have to link sets to just show you, like, this is the brand, but this isn't the set I got. I buy individual ones. I find that the colors I run out most with pencil crayon is anything that's dark, because I tend to use only the dark colors because I use them to outline things, and I use very specific colors, so by the time I went to work on this, I already had sharpened down all my other dark colors so small. Some of them were unusable because I already put them in those holders, but then they fell out because they were so short, like less than an inch long. And I always lose my most favorite colors. I don't know why. Probably because I use them the most and they just kind of fall and get trapped in places I can't see. So I had to make a run out to the art store while filming this, and I grabbed some extra watercolors. I grabbed some turquoise, pink, and burnt sienna, I think, because it's nice to have a brown to kind of start with, and I like to mix in other colors to change the color of the brown. I know how to mix brown from other colors, but it's just faster to already have kind of a base to work with. And I didn't have a magenta sort of pink color, so I got that. And I got turquoise, but it ended up being, it was horizon blue, which is way too light for what I wanted. It's just, there's barely any color there. I wish I got something more rich, so the next time I go to the art store, I'll definitely have to grab that. And I've been wanting to get higher quality watercolors, but I just don't want to spend that right now. I've invested a lot in some art tools like a printer, and I need to get ink for that, and paper and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actually printing my own prints now from home, which I'm really excited about, so I don't want to invest a whole bunch of money into new watercolors. Because the one I'm looking at can range between $15 and like $30, and I don't want to pay that right now. I'm looking into the Daniel Smith watercolors, or the Schminke ones, if I'm even saying that right. But those are the two that people seem to recommend. And maybe I'll slowly build up a collection. Maybe every time I get paid or something, I'll buy one, or I'll put some money towards it, and it'll be something I kind of slowly get. Like, I get one color at a time. But I also want to use up the colors I have now, so maybe whenever I run out of a color, I'll replace it with a higher quality brand. Now I'm just rambling about watercolors, but let me know what ones you use and what you recommend, please. I also have to get brushes, because I recently grabbed a bunch of cheap brushes because I was going to use them with gouache and acrylic and stuff like that, and they work okay for that. I'm actually a little bit disappointed in them. I feel like they used to be better, or I used to get more use out of the cheaper brushes, but they just weren't enough this time. And I also have no small watercolor brushes. I have none. I always have to use acrylic brushes. So when I went to the art store, I grabbed 2 more watercolor brushes. I used the Zen brushes because they're always a really good price and they're always on sale at my art store. I really like them for watercolor. They're just nice and basic. They hold a lot of water. They keep their point. At least the small ones do that I just got seem to hold their point. And they have really nice big brushes that can just coat your whole paper in water. I love them. I don't think they're on Amazon. I'll try to find a link to them, but there's so many different kinds of brushes. You don't need these specific ones. They're just what's easiest for me to find. I had so much fun painting this. I feel like it was one of those times where everything kind of fell into place. I didn't worry too much about making the most amazing composition or the most original type of drawing, because I draw a lot of trees because I like drawing trees. I like nature-y stuff, and I included an element that I've never included before, which were the bones coming out of the ground. I thought that was an interesting sort of hook or like idea that kind of helped me build the rest of it around it. I didn't worry too much about drawing something I've never drawn before. I just kind of let myself have fun with art. And I also used a color palette I don't use a lot, which is very greeny blue heavy. I usually do a lot of warmer greens rather than cooler greens, so that was also a nice change of pace and really fun to work with. And it just makes me excited to possibly do other stuff like this, maybe with the same character, the ladybug girl, or just other worlds. And I think the tall format of this was a lot of fun to kind of design around, because I've never done anything extra landscape or like extra portrait, the very like long formats. So that was also kind of fun and inspiring to work a composition around that. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because sometimes my videos don't show up in everyone's feeds. So if you turn on the bell, there's a greater chance that YouTube will actually show you my videos. And I actually have a Patreon where I send out rewards every month to certain tiers, and there's sketchbook PDFs so you can get exclusive stickers and postcards and just see a little bit more sort of behind the scenes kind of stuff and updates about my future channel plans. So if you're interested, go check out my Patreon, and don't forget to grab a print of this if you want a print. I will link those in the description as well. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed seeing me build a world or an environment, and thanks so much for watching.